Yes, this is John Dollar Bill and my main man Jared Smith. We smooth money gang. Chilling with y'all today, coming live. What you gotta say, son?
What's going on, y'all? Today we got some great topics like we always do. But first, we're gonna get started with talking about Demar Hamlin collapsing during the game last night and getting resuscitated twice at the hospital. And then Skip Bayless had the nerve to worry about them continuing the game before, showing compassion for Demar's life. What do you think about that?
Well, people make mistakes. I'm not gonna go hard on Skip. I'm not gonna go in on him. We all feel some kind of way sometimes, and we're not thinking of the overall situation the way we should. But I do tell you, and moving forward, to understand that we need to treat people with respect. We want to be treated. If it had been his wife laying down there with a cardiac arrest, and somebody said, "Get her out of the field so we can play," he wouldn't have been happy. So I'm just saying we just need to think about what we say and how we go about doing things. That's all I have to say about it. What do you think, man?
I think that with Skip Bayless, he grew up at a time probably where they dehumanized people in sports, especially people of color. And I don't think Skip Bayless is racist or anything, but I think it's hard, no matter how much or how progressive you are, to not slightly be influenced by that time and culture. And I feel like in his mind, he probably thought, well, he's just going to get back up or he's all right, or not thinking about what the worst could and not having the compassion in his mind because he's looking at the athlete as not as a human, but just as like almost like an animal or a gladiator. And, he's just expecting the gladiator to keep going on instead of thinking of it like, what if that was somebody you knew or your family member or whatever. And I think that's some of my biggest problems with his takes. It's always as like not as athletes or human, it's not as human beings that happen to be athletes. It's like athletes that he doesn't associate with being human beings, and then he puts in unrealistic expectations, and you can see how he flip-flops based on he likes. And it's like sometimes when you dehumanize these people playing sports like that, um you're basically knocking the average man down as well, because if you're doing it at the highest level, so if the highest level black athlete is being dehumanized there, then what do you think has happened to the people on the job? For the longest time, it's even worse.
I got a question for you. If
Mm.
Tom Brady had been laying there, what do you think the style would have been if somebody would have said let the game move forward?
What would Skip Bayless say? The thing is, he would have cared more about Tom Brady than anything. But that's the same thing with Michael Jordan because they're his heroes,
Right.
and that's the thing.
I agree with that.
So I know he's not racist, but like I'm saying, it's just like he's got that wrong perception of an athlete, and that's the problem that I have with his takes pretty much all the time.
Tell me something about Donovan Mitchell. Give the
He's
dog treat of the week. I mean, did he show that he was the real dog or what? Tell me about it. Oh, you want to treat the real Donovan? You can take
so Donovan Mitchell, as I've been saying for the longest time, when people were trying to tell me about Bum Simmons
the
and how
good.
much better Bum Simmons was, especially people like this guy on the right or left of me, depending
That
on how
man,
you're looking at the
these streets
screen.
are good.
He was trying to tell me Ben Simmons was better than Donovan Mitchell, and he was supposed to be like the next LeBron James or whatever garbage that I ever, whatever you were talking about that guy, because he really isn't that good. But now you got Donovan Mitchell, like I said, who was going to be the best player out of this class. He showed that he's the best player out of this class. The guy was getting down, dunking on people, crossing them up, hitting shots. Donovan Mitchell's been a big time player, and the only reason people don't talk about him like they should is because he went to Utah. And as you can see now, he wasn't just a system player. The guy can ball. And he's one of the top 15 best players in the NBA, which is worth all the money and trade value that you can give for him. Unless you got a guy equivalent or better, this guy automatically makes your team a top 4 seed, either conference.
I think the dude's cold. Like I said, I don't know if it's true. My dog might be coming in here barking all the time, and she might even bite. But dude, you deserve it because you showed your ASS. What can I say, man? You deserve it. Treat of the day. Let's move on
All right. We got the TCU Horned Frogs winning their playoff game and now getting to the national championship game. What do you think about that?
Man, I'm telling you, that white boy, I can't say that outside. That boy, he gets my second treat of the day. He balled. TCU showed up, showed out. They came in, Michigan State came in there thinking that they owned the place. And they got evicted. They got totally evicted. I'm telling you, man, it wasn't, it came down to the end. My boy Dugan, not Dugan, I'm just playing with you, man. Like, he came through. He had a nice game. They played nice, man. They got a nice team. What do you think, man? Because I got something to throw in your ear after this. What do you think?
You know what I think? I think that this is what Nick Saban feared was going to happen. The NIL has finally evened the playing field, and you're not getting Alabama 4 or 5 years out of 5 years. This is what happened to TCU. TCU got that NIL
Do
money.
that one more
You know
time.
they get that money in Texas. You know they got that big money in Texas.
Yeah,
And now you see TCU is in the national championship game, and it wasn't even considered a team that was in the Power Five that long ago, and they would never
I
get a
say
chance
so.
in a regular scenario. Now TCU playing for the national championship, and if they win and the SEC loses, the SEC is going to be the biggest loser in the NIL deal.
Can I say so? My big boys in Texas. All we gotta do is win one more, and we right.
And that's what it is. And now you got with TCU, if TCU wins the national championship, well, what would that mean for bowl games? Because for the longest times, people were written off because of the conference they played in. But now with TCU winning the national championship, more teams thinking that they have a chance to win a national championship if they got the right the right playing time around the right time of year. Does this extend the playoffs and get rid of more bowl games?
We just second. I just need a second on this. You gonna like this. I really gotta tell you something. This really makes Dion look like a genius. If I could speak like and talk like Bruce Lee, I would. This cooking carries a lot of gravity. Gravity. Forget it. I'm gonna put it to you like this. Man, if you really think about it, Dion opened up a can of worms that really have a lot of people upset. He done took the man's money. He done took the man's money right in front of his face. If I was Nick Saban, I would find him and run him over by them plastic cars. You can't say really run him over by a vehicle, but Nick is mad. What do you think, man? Don't get up. Don't get no cookies. What you think?
I think Dion. I thought Nick Saban was trying to pull one over on Dion. Now he actually pulled one over on himself and didn't realize, because Dion's so smooth. When they had a little conversion together with Gillette, and they thought, that was gonna be a problem, but Dion ain't gonna let it mess with the money. So he like, cool, I love Nick Saban. That's my guy, man. I knew what he was trying to say. You know what I'm saying? Just being cool with him, But the whole time he didn't know, Prime was coming to the Division I level. He didn't know that Prime's about to get all the top recruits now, because if you could ever play for somebody in college football, you're going to play for Deion Sanders, like one of the greatest player and one of the most culturally relevant players of all time, who got top players to go to Jackson State without the top facilities. So now you're going to put them in the Big 12 or with Colorado. They're going to be dominant in a couple of years. And Alabama's on the way down because nobody wanted to go to Alabama until they started winning. So like now they're not going to be winning anymore. People ain't going to Alabama.
Well, that's the same thing. Only the Texas boys stay in Texas when they stay in Texas. You know why? Because a lot of the other states don't have the horses and the hey. Not just nah, but the Texas boys stay in Texas, and then they stay in Texas more. Except Dion's going to get everybody from California, Colorado, Alabama, even some of my Texas boys. He gets some of them because he knows what he's doing. So he'll be able to recruit an array of that. Oh, the Florida boys too. Them speaks.
Don't forget about this. Marijuana is legal in Colorado. How many players are probably going to get some kind of sponsorship deal? There's a lot of money in Colorado right now. I'm sure that the NIL in Colorado, they're about to be winning.
I believe so, man. I believe so.
Yeah.
It's going to be something else. It's going to be something else.
Next up, we got Amani Bates drops 36 against South Carolina and GG Jackson. It looks like Amani Bates has been putting up some big numbers against some big time schools, but his team's losing a lot of games. What do you think about players that, can put up big numbers in big games, but their teams lose? Do you think it's irrelevant if you put up a lot of points and your team lose? Or do you think it's just he doesn't have the right team around him?
Well, the thing is that's what happens. They come out and cut into these situations in college. Their first year, they're trying to showcase how that they are who they say they are. And in the second, third, and fourth years, unless you're Dean Smith or one of the top coaches, the top coaches, the very top coaches, you go into their program and learn how to fit in their systems. The okay to mid-level programs, you go in there and show that you're the dog, and then the next couple of years, you might elevate the rest of the team to be dogs or to complement your play. But I think that it's possible in the second and third year, once teams get used to playing together, that they will turn it around and start winning games. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Amani Bates right now is the definition of, stats padding, pretty much just, or empty stats is what I meant. Like the numbers look good against good teams, but if your team is taking losses to teams that nobody heard of, and obviously you're showing up for the big games, but you're losing, it's like, the thing that separates somebody from being really good and great is like how they affect winning. And like I hope he doesn't come out this year. I hope he stays in a year or another or a couple years until he gets the winning part down. Because what they'll do with him now is he'll end up as a second round draft pick, and he'll never get his chance to lead a team, even though he has the talent to. It's kind of like BJ Boston with the Clippers. BJ Boston was a kind of similar talent coming out of high school. But the thing with him is he had a bad year at Kentucky, went pro anyway, and ended up a second round pick, but they ended up giving him guaranteed money because he can really play. The thing is, with these bad seasons, it can really mess your career up if you get drafted to the wrong team. So like I think hopefully he stays in college a little bit longer, gets a little bit more accustomed to winning and putting up good numbers with wins, and maybe he won't get drafted as low as he's projected to go right now, but he'll never probably get back to that lottery level just because of the negative situations, but at least he can maybe get into the late, early first round right after the lottery and end up being one of those great players. But right now he just doesn't know how to win. And that's a big negative check mark in the NBA right now.
You're right about that. Lastly, I do want to say that a few minutes. I do want to say that UNC's quarterback is I found out that yesterday. Coach did the best job of setting up, but he was good. And also, I'll say that Ohio State's quarterback is good. And I just say that you have to, coaches have to set those quarterbacks up it's like for 3 or 4 quarters, watch these guys show up, show out. But in the last few minutes of the game, looks like you were so busy watching their talent that you forget that you got to coach a game. And that's what happened there. But what do you think?
I couldn't hear you well.
I said, what do you think about some of these talents that are coming out, that are playing and balling out and still losing game by in the last minutes of the game? That's pro and college. Where is the coaching in the last few minutes of these games?
Oh, that was another topic I didn't think of, but that you kind of just led into it right now. Is like the level of coaching is just terrible right now because just look how much better the Nets look without Steve Nash, and now they got Jacques Vaughn. Like I've been saying it the whole time that Steve Nash was a horrible coach because he wasn't making any adjustments. Now the Nets are like top 2 or 3, 4 team in the East when they were looking like one of the worst teams, and it was all because of horrible coaching. You got every player wanting out because it's like every practice is like a free for all, and you're not going to win championships playing like that. And that's how Steve Nash was coaching. But like Stephen A. Smith called it out at the beginning, he wasn't qualified for the position, but they gave it to him anyway. And then they really set the team up for failure. Like there was no defense being taught or nothing. So now I'm looking at the way the game's being played and why, players aren't developing like they should, or what's going, like things are being missed out on the game. It's because the coaching is so bad and they're not using them. Like tell me how Bobo, we saw him in the bubble, right? He looked good for Denver, but somehow the coach for Denver couldn't figure out how to put him in the game. But he goes to Orlando, he's starting and he looks good. Like Denver doesn't think that he could have made winning plays to help them get over the hump against Golden State. Like you couldn't put Bobo on the floor with Nikola Jokic, but they can put Bobo on the floor with 3 7-footers. Like sometimes it's like the limitations of the coach's mind limits the talent around them more than the talent itself. Like there's enough talent to win in some places, but the coaching doesn't know how to put it together. Phil Jackson put it together in Chicago, they already had the pieces.
Right. Yeah, that's what you've heard, man, from School Money Gang. Showed up, showed out, and did what we always do. These know that, know that.